up, y'all? I'm Paris, and this is Keep It Social, the show that brings our timelines to life. I'm here with my co-host Terrence and today's guest to take a closer look at the stories that caught our attention and yours on social this week. Hi, Terrence.
Hey, Paris. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. I shouldn't have asked you, right? Because it's hashtag Paris Day. It's your birthday. You know, shout out to you.
Hallelujah.
How does it feel?
It feels great. I'm grateful for another year, another day. And even though I'm in quarantine, I'm still happy.
Exactly. Yeah. Hats off to you.
Well, thank you, Terrence. Thank you. And I'm also extra happy because we get to do this today and we get to talk with our guests about all these interesting things happening on social.
Yeah. You know, one of the conversations that I feel is so important that we're going to have is the one around, you know, all of this racist and xenophobic content and videos that we're seeing on TikTok, right? And then later on, I mean, we do pivot a little bit and have a conversation with a Pinterest rep and fellow pinner about how they're helping out small businesses and even, you know, helping people at home, you know, during this pandemic. So there's a lot to get into.
Absolutely. And we want to jump right in. But before we do, I want to remind all of you watching to like and subscribe to our social channels. So Terrence, let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
What platform is keeping us all entertained during quarantine? Why, TikTok, of course, and who wouldn't be with all the music and comedy and all sorts of other things that you can find there. But there is a darker side to the app. More and more inappropriate and insensitive TikTok videos and challenges are rising to the surface. Just in the last month, TikTok has been in the news for racism, xenophobia, and for perpetuating stereotypes. And just last week, the app was home to the Autism Challenge, where people with autism and other disabilities were mocked. So what is it about TikTok that makes it a playground for this kind of activity? With us to talk about this today is Tayo. She's a culture writer who published an op-ed about racism on TikTok for Teen Vogue, and she joins us from Toronto. Hi, Tayo.
Hi, good to be with you guys.
Nice to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. And also with us is Haley, who is an autistic attorney and advocate who has written about the Autism Challenge on TikTok, and she joins us from Florida. Hi, Haley.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us. Like I said, a lot of us are on TikTok now. I mean, I made a TikTok for the first time during this quarantine. So there's a lot of cool stuff on there, but unfortunately we're seeing this really hateful and harmful content. And so, Tayo, being that you've written about how this has bubbled up on TikTok, why do you think this is happening?
Well, I think this is definitely just the latest in sort of a long line of hateful, often racist content that comes out of just the social media space in general. And I think with just the emergence of TikTok these days, it's just been given a more creative outlet to do more of that kind of stuff. So I think that's a big factor when it comes to just why TikTok has become so big in this space. And I also think there's definitely just an addiction now in the online space with just going viral, no matter what that means, no matter what the cost is, no matter what the content is about. You know, the more eyes, the better, the more clicks, the better. So I think people are just kind of, you know, looking for the numbers and kind of not thinking about what they're putting out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that, right? And I also compare, when I think about TikTok, like I kind of, what's happening on TikTok, I always think about what has happened on Facebook traditionally, you know, like this really intense, really inappropriate commentary. And so I agree with you that I think it's just a part of another wave of just, you know, carrying over these ideals, these stereotypes, and all of these things that aren't necessarily being educated, aren't necessarily being taught. People aren't necessarily being educated about cultural sensitivities, right? Mm-hmm. They aren't really being taught about, you know, addressing and talking about issues or, you know, situations with people with different learning abilities, right? And so mm-hmm. I think because of that, we are consistently seeing more and more of this like inappropriate stuff go viral, especially on TikTok, because it is now such a creative space, you know, and people think it's comedic, right? It's a joke. Mm-hmm. It's a joke. And as long mm-hmm. as something is a joke, I don't have to be accountable for it, you know? Mm-hmm. So.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Haley, you've written about how I mean, kind of the incredulousness of certain things becoming jokes. And so what's your take on this?
I think you hit it right on the head. And I think the other thing with people not feeling accountable to it as young people is that it is the joke, like you're saying. And in the terms of the autism challenge and people with disabilities, we often are seen as the joke. Look at how we're portrayed in a lot of other media as well. Look at how a lot of people also think of special education and students who receive those services as other. They don't see us as people. They think of us as that they're volunteering to help the special needs kids or whatever it is. But we're people just like anybody else. And what's really interesting about what happens on TikTok is that plenty of disabled creators want to use that space to be able to get their message out, to spread awareness, to incite activism, all these wonderful things. But TikTok's very own anti-bullying policies actually suppress the voices of disabled creators, just as they do with fat and queer creators, because they think that they're protecting them as vulnerable people from bullying. But on the flip side, you see things like this autism challenge where users would dance to this audio that came from a spoof called Let's Get Retarded. You'd see them dancing to this in a very offensive manner that makes fun of the very way that people with disabilities move in our bodies, work throughout the world. And it took the activism of disabled creators, of our allies, and people who just know that this is wrong to get TikTok to even act on it. So you see this very interesting dichotomy going on of that we're going to suppress these voices because we don't want them to get bullied, but we're also going to let them get bullied when able-bodied people mock them.
And Tayo, you've kind of touched a bit on this too, about sort of this onus that TikTok has to prioritize certain content or hide certain content over others, and even some of the choices they've made to suppress some of this content, some of what Haley is talking about. And so that makes me wonder about the intention and about the intentionality of the platform itself and what role they have in making sure certain voices get amplified and certain others don't. I mean, not in a way that's censorship, but it's just about, I guess, control.
Right. And I think, yeah, at the end of the day, it does come down to control and being able to control what's on the platform. And I think the big question that's on a lot of people's minds is, does TikTok care that this is happening? And I think, for me, the answer would be absolutely not. They've shown it in the way that they, do or don't put policies in place to protect, marginalized people, to protect people of color, to protect people with disabilities, communities that are consistently bullied and harassed and subjected to just all kinds of vitriol on these platforms. So their action or inaction in this case, when it comes to dealing with these issues, sends a very big signal to, these communities about just whether or not TikTok cares about what happens to them on these platforms. And I think the other piece of it too, it comes down to the suppression of voices, like you mentioned. So in a lot of ways, TikTok, many creators of color, specifically, I would say Black creators, have spoken out for quite a while just about the fact that their content has gotten taken down because they were speaking out about racism, or just having, videos taken down, videos removed, when all this other racist stuff is still right up there. So, it does beg the question, like, who is the priority here? Is it the people who this platform is supposed to be protecting and supposed to be taking care of when they are using, this app? Or is it the people who want to spew hate, but are getting more views and getting more clicks on the app? So that's that would be the consideration for me.
And there's also an element of age demographic here, right? I mean, a number of experts have said that because of how young a lot of TikTok's users are, their brain isn't developing to the point where they understand what they're doing, what the consequences are. But I don't know, but it's Terrence is making this face like, I don't know about that.
I just think that that's like a loaded question, right? Or not a loaded question, but a very loaded statement and kind of a cop-out, right? Because I think what they're referring to is not just a lot of young users. I think what they're really referring to, quite honestly, is able-bodied, white, heteronormative, usually male users, right? Because everybody else, if they aren't as able-bodied, if they aren't white, if they aren't cisgendered, if they aren't X, Y, and Z, they have been, they know or relate to those experiences. They have more cultural sensitivities usually because the world doesn't necessarily play to them. The world isn't as much of an oyster, you know? And so, like, for me, I was taught about a lot of things growing up as far as race and gender and all those things, because
Absolutely.
they affected me on the front lines, you know?
Mhm.
And so I think it's valid to an extent, but I also think it's important to acknowledge that within that statement, there are problems to also recognize, and there's nuance to that, right? It's not
Mhm.
just, oh, they're young and they don't know. I don't think that's a fair assessment.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and Haley, what do you think? I mean, how do you think that we educate and maybe for people who don't have these experiences right up front, how do we essentially educate them so that they don't do these things and that they're a little, I don't know if you want to say woke or what, or just a little more attuned to how this might affect and impact people who are different from them.
So I think what's really interesting, especially with what happened in the autism challenge, is when you did go to view the audio, what happened is people took it over that were non-disabled and disabled alike, saying, this is wrong, that if you're doing this, you are a complete fool, that you are not being responsible. This is deeply inappropriate and offensive. So it was really interesting seeing that in this case, people really took to heart to say, this is wrong, and call it out. And I think that happened because people see people with disabilities in general as kind of the lowest rung in that society, that were the people that are seen, even when we were talked about in a Democratic debate, that Elizabeth Warren referred to us as the least of thy brethren. So I don't agree with that statement, but that's how society views us, is they view us as even more vulnerable and less than others. So I think that's why disability in particular gets more attention and called out as being bad, because we're taught, don't make fun of people with disabilities, that's just wrong. And I think with young people, we're seen as less, and that we're a good cause to volunteer for or something else like that too. So I think when it comes to education, it's important that we do amplify the voices of marginalized creators and these very people that TikTok is rightfully saying are vulnerable to bullying, but actually giving them the platform to speak out against that bullying, to educate others. And I know that's part of a lot of the work that I do, is I very much value being able to educate people about disability. I'm autistic. I can't speak for the entire autistic and disabled populations, but I can share my own experience. I can tell you what it's like practicing law. I can tell you what it's like going through life as a young person on the spectrum, especially as a woman, but I don't also know the extra nuances and intersectional nuances that you're mentioning as well. So I don't know what it's also like to be a disabled person of color, for instance. Right. I don't know what it's like to be disabled in LGBTQ. I don't have those extra experiences, but those are things where I think TikTok has the ability to really pass the mic, especially because there are so many wonderful content creators out there, and that we should be making sure that they get the platform and that they're able to share their experiences and they're able to help educate. So I think when it comes to education, we need to make the format accessible and meet young people where they're at. And that may very well be on TikTok.
Absolutely. Well, Haley, you're preaching to the choir, and we're always happy to pass the mic at Keep It Social. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And Tayo, thank you to you as well. You've given us a lot to think about, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Businesses, both large and small, are trying to figure out how to bounce back from this pandemic. Pinterest is doing its part to not only help out retail shops, but also give everyone at home a little retail therapy. With its new feature, Shopping Spotlights, Pinterest is giving users their own stylist. How does that sound, Terrence?
Sounds pretty nice to me.
Okay. And with so many brick and mortar stores closing in the COVID-19 economy, is Pinterest replacing malls? With us to discuss more is Pinterest researcher Larkin Brown, who joins us from San Francisco. Hello, Larkin.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. So tell us a little bit more about this feature. Tell us kind of what was the impetus behind this, and how is it really going to help businesses in this current moment?
So the new feature that we've launched this week is Shopping Spotlights, and you'll find it in search. And what it is it's a collection of recommendations that's been curated by an expert. So that could be a tastemaker, a publisher, and they think of some little theme associated with it, and then have a set of recommendations that are all shoppable. So the one you'll see right now is by Elaine Walteroff, and she's curated quarantine cozies, which, as you might expect, is a lot of excellent loungewear.
That sounds expensive.
Right? And then what's great about this is that the folks who are curating for us are making sure to add a lot of products from small businesses, just as you mentioned. And I know that's something I'm certainly thinking a lot about right now, right? I want my favorite boutiques and small brands to survive these uncertain times. And we're not alone in that. It turns out pinners, which is what we call people who use Pinterest, pinners.
I'm a pinner.
Yes, you're a pinner. Are you a pinner?
I actually am a pinner.
Okay,
All right. And it turns out searches for support small businesses on Pinterest is up 351%. So it's something that our community of users is really thinking about too.
So Larkin, with that being said, like, we've seen since COVID hit, since this pandemic began, right, that a lot of businesses have made, large donations to organizations or, really put forth some type of monetary financial support. So I wonder what was the decision for Pinterest to go this route in comparison to like other platforms or other entities that were like, well, we're going to donate this amount of money to X, Y, and Z businesses or X, Y, and Z organizations.
Mm-hmm.
What we want to do at Pinterest is be the place where people are able to act on ideas for their life. And so often that involves shopping and buying products. So we're really focused on making sure we elevate and support those businesses to get their products in front of the right people who would be inspired by them and interested in them. And with all of the shopping features that we've launched recently, Pinterest is not taking an affiliate cut of it at all. We make our money through advertising. So these businesses have the opportunity, if they want to take one of these shoppable product pins and promote it into an ad, they can, but they don't have to. Everyone can connect their pipeline of catalog right to Pinterest without paying any fee at all. It's free. So that's our version of trying to help them get the business that they so desperately want and need right now. And then that's great for our pinners too, because they really trust the recommendations of Pinterest, and it means that we have more high quality products for them to pick from.
And so Larkin, with that, I mean, this is kind of this next step with online shopping. We already have seen that people can go online and you can get the things that you want in a click of a button. But at the same time, we see that brick and mortar stores, even especially department stores and malls, are kind of declining. People aren't going there as much, not getting as much of the foot traffic. So is Pinterest kind of hoping to eclipse that, to replace that type of shopping and usher in a new era?
We certainly want to be an online destination for shopping, but we also know that there is so much inspiration and ideas that you get from seeing and experiencing things in person. And while Pinterest is trying to capture kind of the best of real world shopping, a lot of what people use Pinterest for is to save a bunch of products that they're considering and then going in store to touch and feel them in person. Or we see this especially with home goods, which people are so focused on right now that we spend so much time in our homes.
Right.
To save a bunch of ideas on Pinterest, then we recommend options of products. But then once things reopen, it can be really helpful to go into a store to a salesperson and say, hey, I want something kind of like this, or I'm interested in these 2 lamps. Can you show me where they are? So we hope that Pinterest fits into both the online e-commerce world, but then also can be the inspiration that helps lift up some of the foot traffic that happens for businesses in person too.
That's definitely what I'm using Pinterest for right now, is ideas for my apartment, because we have to move and like redecorate this, space.
Lennox.
We have to, get it going. So Larkin, I also saw on other platforms, like Instagram in particular, there's like this shop small, like highlight story where local businesses or local accounts that you follow can kind of sort of just, add their products to that story, and you see it once you click through as if you were going through someone you follow on the regular, their highlighted story or whatever. So how do you see this, what Pinterest is doing, really setting itself apart from what some of these other platforms have in the works?
So much of it comes down to recommendations. And I fear that as we've tried to translate offline shopping to the online world, we are getting into these really overly optimized algorithms, right? That are either showing you products based really similar to what you've looked at already, or it's like that same pair of slippers is following me around the internet right now, or it's based on these external signals that I've been doing, like, liking other people's photos. Where on Pinterest, you guys know this as pinners, it's really about you, right? People describe it as their me time, and you're planning for your life, your future apartment. So the recommendations that come up are really intrinsically motivated as opposed to some of these external factors, which makes them inherently more relevant and more personal. So we're hoping by connecting, making it really easy for all of these brands and boutiques to upload their photos, their products, that we get to use the magic of our really personal recommendations to help you find the product that's just right for you.
Well, hey, that idea of your own personal shopper, personal stylist, I'm here for it.
I think we all are. We
all are. We definitely all are. Larkin, thank you so much. We're also all for helping out small businesses who are struggling, so that's great.
Right.
Larkin, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. So nice to meet you guys. Take care.
You too. All right, it's time for some bells and whistles, where we look at what's new in social media tech. Facebook is always looking to add jewels to its crown. This week, the mega platform bought Giphy and plans to integrate all our favorite GIFs into Instagram. It was a busy week for Facebook as the company also introduced avatars, its own line of stickers that look just like you. So, I don't know, Terrence, are you thinking Bitmoji here?
Yes, I was definitely thinking Bitmoji. And I was also just thinking about my iPhone avatar that kind of moves and talks with you.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I went and I created one, right? I was like, let me see what this looks like. And long story short, it doesn't look like me, but I do have an avatar Facebook sticker now, that I could use when, I don't know, but I have one.
Right. And I'm sure as it keeps rolling on, people are going to come up with all kinds of creative ways to use it. So,
Yeah. So wait, didn't you create one? What does yours look like?
Okay. So I had a time. It reminded me of kind of like when you make a sim. I used to play The Sims a lot when I was younger. So it reminded me of that. So it was fun in that sense. But I also was just like, there were so many options for skin tone and for eye shape and face shape and all this other stuff. So I was like, okay.
Which is a good thing.
It was really a good thing. I was really appreciative of that, but I think it also made me want to make it look as much like me as possible. And I got to tell you, I failed.
Yeah.
I failed. But she's still cute, though. She's still
right. Cute. As long as we're cute, that's what really matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that was an instance of Facebook kind of copying Avatar, Bitmoji, as we said, but they also bought Giphy, or what is Giphy?
I think I say GIF, GIF to glory. I say Giphy.
Yes, to glory. I mean, I will say that Merriam-Webster accepts both pronunciations, but nonetheless.
Right.
So they bought Giphy, and I don't know. I can't tell if this is going to be a good thing or not.
Right. I don't think of GIFs and Instagram paralleling a lot, at least not from my use, right? I can see it being really fun when you DM friends, or maybe you post something to your story and this GIF just really captures this moment. Right. However, I don't look at it the same way as with Twitter, right? Twitter and GIFs are
synonymous.
Right. A perfect marriage, So I don't know how this is really going to work out for Instagram, but I guess I'll have to just explore and see.
Yes, we will. And it looks like we won't be losing our favorite GIFs. So that's a good thing, at least.
Right.
All right. Well, that's it for us, everybody. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel and social media. And let us know what you want to see on the show. Definitely keep us posted on what's trending on your timelines, and we'll see you next week. Until then, what should they do, Terrence?
Keep it social.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Good.
Wow. Hello. I was like, who's Wesley?
Yeah, so we wanted to bring everyone, bring in your family to tell you happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Thank
Terrence.
you so much. I was wondering. I was like, they have not called me all day.
Surprise.
What?
To you.
Oh.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Paris. Happy birthday to you.
A production of WGBH.